Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug for parents going through the tween and teen years, where we combine expert research and our own experience to make this whole thing much less stressful and enjoyable. I'm Rachel Richards, journalist, mother of 2 teenagers and 2 bonus daughters.
Hi there, I'm Susie Asley. I'm a mindfulness coach, mindful therapist and musician, and mother of 2 teenagers and a 20-year-old.
Now, do you ever feel judged for the way you parent?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah, I think it's a question to everybody.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
Definitely. I mean, maybe less than I used to, but that's because I've worked on it.
I think a lot, yeah, and that's actually the feedback I'm getting from people. I think that I think we feel judged generally, but I think as parents, it's a particularly big problem. I thought about this topic when I was chatting with Giselle Goodwin, the woman who wrote Can Women Really Have It All? And she told me that she'd been in a swimming pool changing room, pulling on her trousers when her mum picked up a towel and put it around her shivering daughter. And she said she just felt awful and judged. And it was so funny because when I heard her talking about it, I was picturing another mum stepping in to support her. So it did make me think, obviously I couldn't hear the tone of the woman's voice. I couldn't see the way she did it. But I do wonder how much we're genuinely being judged, how much support parents are trying to offer, but it feels like judgment, and how we can do this. How can we help other parents without making them feel bad?
I think it's a brilliant topic and all of the above. Like, there's so much to talk about with this.
So much to talk about. So let's start with a nugget.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Susie.
So I have a nugget. I had quite a while ago, there was a phase where I was, I don't know, me and my daughter were maybe rubbing each other up slightly the wrong way, which is unusual for us. Like we have a very honest relationship and we fall out and stuff, but not then it's done. So I was like, oh, this feels a bit weird. So what I did was I just said, can I come into your room and can I just sit here? And she was doing stuff and she just kind of went, yeah, okay. Can I bring my book in? So I just sat with my book on her bed and read in the same room as her.
Wow.
And then eventually sort of we started chatting and mucking about. And because it wasn't like a terrible situation, it was fine. It was so lovely. And it was like a very simple connecting moment. And I've done it again since. She's on holiday at the moment with a friend, and the night before I was like, oh, can I just come and sit in your room and watch you pack?
I love that. And
I'm not doing anything, and she laughs and goes, well, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Like, what are you doing? But loves it. So you don't have to go. No, it's fine. I just found it really helpful and thought maybe someone else would find that helpful too.
I think that's brilliant, Susie. And I think that occupying space with them without making any judgments or even expectations can be incredibly powerful. And it's not my nugget, but actually I had a similar thing with my daughter recently where she was walking around with her headphones on, and I just thought, oh, why has she got her headphone? Like she's in the kitchen with me, but and I just said to her, sweetie, what are you listening to? And she said, oh, just my music. And I said, would you mind taking your headphones off? And she went, well, I want to listen to my music. And I said, well, why don't you just play it on the speakers?
We can all listen to it.
And she said, well, you won't like my music. And I said, try me. And
brilliant.
She started playing it. And I just went, oh, this is good. So what are the lyrics for this? And why do you like this?
So nice.
Completely transformed our relationship over the next few days because she kept then talking about it. It's actually not that hard. It's just we need to take those moments.
Yeah, and I literally sat on her bed and read my book in silence.
Love it.
Until then we started kind of saying the odd word, and then it was fine.
Amazing. Really great tip. I love that one, Susie. I want to just reflect, and it ties into this judgment episode, on the way that we talk in our homes about other people in front of your kids, and even when they're out of earshot, because they may well be in earshot. And I think that I came from a very, very, very judgmental background, and I think I was quite a judgmental person when I was younger, and I'm very sorry to anybody I judged, but I think it was just a reflection of what had been fed into me as a younger person. And I find it so interesting when I've talked to my kids, because what I've learned is that if you say anything about other people behind their backs, on reflection, unless it's a positive thing about how you wonder why they did it this way rather than this way, when you're being very judgmental, your kids are absorbing absolutely everything you say. And they are clocking that you don't like that particular thing, or you would say that about somebody. So they're thinking, well, what would they say about me?
Yes.
It's actually vitally important that we're aware of that, and that if you want your kids to have an open conversation with you about things, and you want them to have a trusting relationship, be really mindful about how you talk about other people and how you reflect on their own failings and your own, and being kind about them.
I totally agree with that. It can also kind of turn into like gossipy bonding in a weird way, can't it?
Well, yes, and that can be a fun thing.
Yeah,
but it's you have to be really mindful. Like, and it's always worth, if you've done something like that, just saying to your kids, "How did that make you feel? Did that land badly?"
I think that's really good.
Yeah,
I actually have one of my kids pushes back on that. They really hate it. They really hate.
Mine too.
The other two are like, depending on what it is, but this one of my kids is like, I don't like that. Why are you saying that?
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
And I go, oh, you're absolutely right. Sorry.
Yes, and it's easily done. And you can say, oh, what's the gossip? And the gossip can be really fun gossip. Yeah. But then there's a gossip as in a cruel, mean, judgy. Yeah,
and it's a big difference. Value laden as well, isn't it? Which is not always helpful.
Yeah. So let's. We've got a couple of reviews to read. Do you have one there?
I have one here. It's called Super Helpful. Shame I didn't know about you sooner. I've listened to practically every episode. Wow. That's a lot of them.
Wow.
That's impressive. I specifically appreciate that you have done the time-consuming works of reading the books and doing the research, and just give us the main takeaways. Very thought-provoking. Can you please do an episode on entitled teens, how to prevent in the first place, on what to do if you have one? My 19-year-old in her first job feels that she should be earning way more than minimum wage. Also a bit of feedback on learning to drive. I have had some lovely time together with my daughter when we take a rest in between practice drives in new places. It's a great opportunity to spend chill time together. That's
brilliant.
Thank you very much for that.
Yes, I love that. And actually, like we've always said, sitting in a car talking can be very, very useful, can't it?
It can be super useful, but having had all mine pass in the space of 6 months, I am done with driving.
Done. Exhausting. You let them taxi you around. No, and I will do that. We have done one on entitlement in the past, but actually I think what she's talking about there is expectations.
Yes.
Versus reality, which is a whole different thing. And Giselle Goodwin talks about it. And there's a Mo Godat quote, which is, happiness is your perception about where you're at the moment compared with or minus what you expected.
Yeah. Oh, God. Expectations are the root to suffering.
We will do that. Right. My one is thank you to your daughter for her recent podcast on relationship breakups. She spoke so openly and bravely. I really loved her insights. My daughter is coming to the end of year 11, but so much of your daughter's experience resonated on so many levels. I look forward to listening to it with her. And I think these insights will be helpful coming from someone a couple of years older. I listened for a long time, but I listened extra hard today. And thank you both for that. That's really lovely. And that was about breakups, first love, and being gay, bisexual, LGBT, whatever.
Brilliant.
So that was a very good. I'm happy it's helped at least one person.
Yeah.
Right. So let's get on to the judgment episode. So I asked on Instagram if anybody, when do you feel most judged? And the first response was, being a divorced single parent and 50, judged by my own parents as a major fail.
Oh, I can put my hand up for that.
You can put your hand up for that. And like, why is that a major fail? What about if he was the awful person? What about if you, anyway. So what about you? You've got some there, haven't you?
Yes, I've got one here. I believe you are most judged when your children are going through adolescence. It's a time for risk-taking, but also learning how to express themselves when they get it wrong, it can be felt as a reflection of bad parenting, which it isn't, not always anyway. I do think this is why so many parents don't do the school gate at secondary school for fear of being judged by others.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I was asked to even set up the podcast, because I think lots of parents were saying, I don't know what I'm doing and I feel really scared. And one of the other responses was, my son's behaviour during the early high school years. I thought everyone was judging me for the difficulties he was having, the trouble he got into. Maybe a lot were, but I've learned over time that I can't control what they think of me or him. And we've been through it with a lot of talking to each other, forgiveness, compassion towards ourselves. And now I care much less about others. We don't have to feel superior or inferior to anyone else. She's been listening a long time. We talk, she had some problems and she's done an incredible job.
Amazing. I mean, judgment is such an interesting topic. were you about to say something?
Well, I was just going to start by saying it is more of a mother issue. And Pew Research study in 2023 showed that far larger amounts of mothers than fathers say they're extremely or very worried about their children. Mums are also more likely than dads to say being a parent is stressful and tiring. Mm-hmm. And they're generally more likely than fathers to say they feel judged for how they parent their children.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. It's right, isn't it?
Yes. So what were you going to say, Susie?
I was going, because I'm very opinionated about this topic, very judgmental now. No, but judgment is a big part of mindfulness. So non-judgment is one of the core attitudes in mindfulness. And I've done loads of teaching and webinars on the topic. And when I first started doing that, I had kind of really unpacked it. And non-judgment, so that sounds great, doesn't it? We don't want to judge. But that's not what it is, because we can't not judge. So judgment is a survival instinct. So we judge to stay alive. Yes. We have to judge. I mean, it's obvious really, isn't it? But, judge whether something's safe or unsafe. That's how we we have a lens that we see the world through. Mm-hmm. Safe, unsafe. Do we have to run away? What do we have to do? So judgment is a kind of core survival skill. But obviously that's not the kind of judgment we're talking about here, but it's worth bearing that in mind. Mm-hmm. So non-judgment doesn't exist. Like, we can't not judge. It's wired into us. But what we can do through mindfulness or through other ways of being is we can become aware of our judgment. So we notice when we're judging, and we then notice the patterns of our judgment, because are always patterns. There's patterns in everything, but there's patterns in judgment. So what are you particularly judging? And I think really interestingly is two things with judgment. And the first is when somebody is judging you, it says way more about them than you. It's always a projection. I love that. Yes. So, they're judging, I can't think of an example. Like if they're judging that your kid is doing something in particular, that's because they have an issue with it, or they think it's brilliant or bad or whatever. It's always a projection of their value system, their state of mind, their time in their life, whatever. Their own kids, their own upbringing, whatever it is. It's always a projection. And then the second one, which I think is super, super interesting, is we pick up the judgments of others depending on how much we already believe them. Ooh. So if, can I give an example? So if someone was to say to me, you hate fruit, like you always hate fruit, I would go, what the heck? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm not going to give that any time of day. I'm not going to give that any space in my head. That's rubbish. And I would just discard it. But if somebody says to me, oh, your parenting isn't very good, you don't do enough for your kids, which is already a trigger for me, like maybe an old narrative, I'd go, oh, yes. And even if in my head I was going, oh, but that's not very nice, or I don't believe you, it's triggered something in me that already exists. I love that. It's absolutely already true. My narrative. So therefore I take that way more seriously. And if I'm not careful, I spiral into, oh, that's right, that's true. See, I told you I wasn't doing that. So we have to be really aware of our triggers. And actually, as in anything, judgment is an opportunity to look at our own stuff. Yeah, no, absolutely. Why is that resonating with me? Because if somebody was to tell me, you hate fruit, that doesn't resonate, I chuck it out the window. The other stuff, if it resonates, why is that resonating? That's a brilliant tip. And I think you're completely right. And it is only the times when I have felt lacking and someone makes a comment that it makes me feel really uncomfortable. Yeah. Yes, I think you're spot on. And so our work is to find out what triggers us. Yes. And also to work out what's important to me, like what is important. And the more we shine, or the more alternative we are in our parenting or in anything we do, the louder we are in particular areas, the more we're going to annoy other people and trigger them, and they're going to project onto us. So the more certain we are in the way we show up, the more comfortable, the more grounded, the more balanced we are, the less we care.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And I think that one of the big problems I had was that I grew up without any good template for parenting. And I think that I then felt like I was starting from scratch and I was reading everything and trying to figure out how you do this. And that made me extremely vulnerable. And I think that's true of an awful lot of parents, both because they had a difficult upbringing, but also I think a lot of parents now feel at sea with the society that they're in, that it doesn't really reflect the way that they necessarily were brought up, and then they're trying to adapt, but they're not sure. So they're more open to, well, maybe that's not the right way to look. Everything's shifted. So is this how I should be doing it? I don't know.
Yes.
And you can feel more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think, I started out thinking, is it different now from the past? Were we less judgmental, more? And I think you've made a great point, because the truth is judgment is part of the way that human beings work. And I was watching Jeremy Clarkson the other night. Jeremy Clarkson's a farm program, absolutely brilliant, and my kids love it too. And he had pigs, and he had a sow who'd given birth to pigs, and the sow had rolled on two of her pigs, just sat on them, and they died. And these little piglets. And he brought some experts in and said, what are we doing wrong? This is awful. They've got these little pig loos and everything's great. And one of the comments really sat with me, which was, if you put them in, all the pigs in together in a big pen rather than these individual little igloos, if you have a mum who's doing not a particularly good job, the other sows will tell her off.
Oh, wow.
and they'll kind of make her parent better.
Go pigs.
And I thought, no, but you see, so my point is that there's an evolutionary benefit to parents looking at other parents and how they're parenting, because you're supposed to be there to sort of support them. But it was much more local. It's much more private, local, clearer social roles in the past. So mothers were often judged based on very much more specific things, like your homemaking and your obedience to societal gender roles, and whether the kids turned out looking, smart. Not that this was good, but it was a different, it was a much more specific thing. Yeah. And we had less information. You didn't have access to the entire world and the way the world thought.
No. And judgment itself, I mean, we're presenting it as well in that way, but it's often presented as a negative thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Judgment is negative. It's not. Judgment means it's an opinion, isn't it?
It's an opinion, yes.
You can have good judgment and you can have bad judgment.
Yeah.
But we hear judgment and we go, oh, it's bad. And it's laced with fear.
And yes, you're right, the discomfort that you feel from being judged. And I think, coming back to the episode with Giselle Goodwin, one of the things that's happened for women is that we have now not only just been given access to the workplace, we are now expected to be working, and the role of parenting has still been left with women, largely. Yeah. And I'm not saying that's true across the board. And I think there are a lot of men who want to step up, but they're actually being held back by societal norms and by the lack of support for men to leave work and be a parent at home. And one thing she said, which I thought was brilliant, was she said, because we have many more touch points in our lives, so a working mum who might be working part-time and then coming and picking up her child, she will be comparing herself to the other women who are full-time mums. And they may be looking at her and thinking, oh, she's always late, she never contributes. And, but she's got her own pressures. And then when she's in the workforce, she can't turn up in the same way that somebody who doesn't have any other pressures looking after a family, she can't turn up in that way. So then she also feels... So I'm just trying to sort of expand on why women might feel this even more.
Absolutely.
And it's still expected that if something goes wrong, it's the woman's fault.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here thinking that, it's the difference between the external driven and the internal driven, isn't it? It's like, it's almost like when we feel really judged as parents, and I totally put my hand up for that, particularly when I was young, actually.
Yeah.
I think I'm less fussed now, but we all, of course, we all feel it. It's almost like we're waiting for permission to be told, oh, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job.
Oh, yes.
You're doing a good job.
Yes.
And then that's an externally driven thing, isn't it? So if whatever I'm doing, whatever my situations, I'm working, I'm not working, I'm my kids are running wild. They're all at home being amazing, getting A stars, whatever the situation. I'm waiting for somebody almost to go, oh, pat me on the back. You've done it.
Yes,
good job.
you're
well
so
done.
right.
And so any judgment that comes in is either fulfilling that or telling you, oh, there's still work to do. You're not quite there yet. So if we can switch the balance back to, okay, what do I think?
Yeah.
What is my internal driven judgment? What do I think is enough? Do I think it's really important that my kids get A stars? Brilliant, support them in that. Do I think it's important that I go to work? Whatever the situation, it doesn't matter. Then I don't care what other people think because I'm good with it. I'm not waiting for permission for someone to go, you're doing a good job.
Susie, you hit the nail on the head. Such an important thing. And I had a very driven career before I became a parent. And I was at the end of every day when I was a news correspondent, the editor would gather people around and give them feedback. And he'd say, that was amazing. You did that. Yeah. Oh, and why did you do that? That didn't work as well. And there would be lots of feedback. And then I had a baby and nobody congratulated me for keeping them alive. And I remember thinking, like, where's my audience? Where's my praise? Why is this not? Yeah. And I think that's also, if you're used to having a lot of external feedback and things, it can be extremely stressful. I hit the nail on the head.
And also just say, feedback is lovely. There's nothing wrong with wanting or needing feedback. And we do it in our relationships, don't we? And then it becomes weird. Like we want to be congratulated for taking out the rubbish or silly things like that. But it ideally comes from inside.
It comes from inside, yeah. And I think that one of the things that I've noticed is that as a result of things like social media, judgment has become democratized. So anyone can judge you. It's not just the people in. So it used to be that it would be the people in your immediate surroundings who had possibly a better look over the fence of what your life was actually like. Maybe not in a nice way, but they had more understanding of and context of what's happening. Whereas now there's an awful lot of, you can look anytime, you can look on the internet and you can see parents being amazing, but you can also see parents sharing their troubles, which is also very helpful. Or you see parents doing terrible things and you can judge them for that. And then you get the keyboard warriors saying that's an appalling thing you're doing. And I think there are lots more ideologies now. I think we've got a lot more experts and they don't agree.
Great, brilliant.
Right? And it's brilliant. But then you're left thinking, okay, so if you want to latch onto one ideology or one way of doing things, then you can constantly be attacked by people who are on the other side of the fence going, no, I don't think that's right. And you have to... Yeah, but that's why we're doing things in the format we're doing, which is actually what we really need. I think parenting's a haggle. I think it's a haggle between you and your partner. I think it's a haggle with the genes of the kids you've got, with yourself, with your environment. And there's nothing perfect about it at all. And what you have to do is you have to be able to say, okay, like this is the thing I'm dealing with, right? What's going to sound good for me? What will work for me? Yeah. And make that your focus.
I like that. I love that. A haggle. It's a haggle.
It's a haggle.
So is. But the noise outside is so loud, isn't it? Maybe that's the point of there's so many different opinions. There's so much noise. And some of the noise, a lot of the noise is kind of, I am the truth.
Yes.
This is the only way to be.
As if there was ever the right way.
And if we're vulnerable, which we all are, because none of us know what we're doing.
No.
We're like, oh, swinging from that to that. Or try that. Or try that. Try that. Without checking inside what feels right, what resonates, where am I in balance?
And how is this going to fit with my lifestyle, my partner, my own values, my own kids? Because, you can see someone else's kids performing X, Y, Z, but they're not your kids. And they don't have the same gene mapping. They don't, that you don't have the same constraints that they have, or they have, you have way more constraints. So judging ourselves against other people's lives and their expectations is only going to make us sad. And I saw this brilliant quote from this. She calls herself 21st century stay-at-home mum. She's on Threads. She said 21st century parenting means tethering your children to your body every second you're awake, because God forbid a tragedy happens. The internet will absolutely crucify you for your neglect. But also don't be a helicopter parent, because kids these days don't know how to handle anything on their own. And we wonder why Gen Z says, nah, I think I'm set with having kids.
That is funny and very true.
Yes. I mean, my daughter says that actually it's because the system's stacked against her. She's 30. She's saying this system is not going to work for me for having children at the moment.
Very difficult.
So there's a different thing. Well, we won't get onto that. But So let's talk about how
and also I'm just going to jump in there because I'm just thinking with judgment, like if we follow it through to the end, so judgment is full of fear, isn't it? That's why we're judging, why anyone's judging or receiving judging. It's fear. Otherwise we'd just go, I don't care, stick our fingers in our ears.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we follow it to the end, what are we frightened of? What are we frightened of? That. And if we're really honest and sit with all of the ifs and buts, it's fear of, doing a bad job, fear of failure, fear of our kids. There are various flavors, aren't there, depending on your own personal narrative. What's your personal fear at the end of the judgment?
Yeah.
What do you think the judges are right in, that you're going to be sort of confirmed that your kid's going to be homeless or or they're going to crash, or that whatever,
I love that.
Whatever your personal brand of fear is, what are you really feared of? Because otherwise you wouldn't care about the judgment.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things I love about my husband is he just doesn't worry.
Amazing.
No, he really doesn't, and I can't shame him into worrying. I admire that ability to sort of just be like, no, this is the way. Here are my values. Here's how I think about things. It's actually really refreshing, because I'm a bit flip floppy and like, I don't know, is this the right?
That is,
and I do challenge him. I do argue with him, and sometimes he goes, no, you've got a really good point there. Yeah. But he doesn't feel shame.
No.
He just goes, oh, yeah, no, that's a good point. We'll do that.
And I imagine you kind of want to drag him in and go, share this burden of worry with me.
Yes, he just goes, Nat, you can drop that mess on the floor, clean it up later. Let's go and do something else. So let's talk about how we can tell the difference. And I loved your point about being able to, is it something that really matters to me? It probably is, if you're feeling the shame
or a trigger,
fear.
An old trigger. I noticed, just to expand that a tiny bit before I let you speak.
Go for it.
Like sometimes I think I've sorted something through and I'm not worried about it. I'm not fearful about it. It's an old thing, and it shows up again. And it can be really quiet, can be a real whisper. And it's sometimes when somebody is judging, and it might not be to me, it might be something out there, I read a judgment. And then I feel this ick, this trigger. And if I'm not really careful, I sort of spiral down that one. And it gets you. So awareness is super key in this. Stuff that
that moment.
Where you go, oh, look, where your judgment is, or the judgment is going, see, told you so. Told you so. Yeah. So we have to be really aware of them.
I love that. And I think the times when I felt judged, there's a technique I've worked out, which is if I'm feeling this ick, this uncomfortable feeling, I try to think, so where is it coming from? I try to locate it. And in the past, I felt that so much more because I felt the judgment, and it was from people in my family.
Yeah.
And once I had managed to identify it, I could then question whether it was true, whether what they were judging me for was actually reasonable. And almost always it wasn't reasonable. Like you said, they were projecting onto me, and I just stepped away from it.
Amazing.
And it just made all the difference. Yeah. And identifying it's one of the most important things to start with.
And it surprises us. I mean, I actually have an example of it from me as well recently. Like my academic stuff was important in my family of origin, and so I felt I had to perform well, the classic, be enough in that way to be acceptable. So I have always told my kids, work hard, but your results do not define you. The end, period. Like you are way more than any of that. And when really made a massive effort into sharing that with them and teaching that, and they get it. And then when they have had hurdles in their academic, which loads of kids do, mine have definitely, I was met with it again. I was like, what is that? Like, and it's a tiny little whisper going, but you think it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter, but what if it does?
Yeah, it's still part of your DNA.
It really does. Yes. Like, it's still there. So we're having to, we sometimes have to be really honest and unpack it really carefully.
And keep revisiting. Yeah. You never assume it's never one and done.
No, it's never one and done. Yeah.
I think one of the things that's helped me most is when someone is judging me, you can't change their mind by saying, you can either sort of step away and think, well, I don't care.
Yeah.
But you can't change their mind by necessarily arguing the toss unless there's someone like my husband. One of the things you can do is you can question the judgment. And why does that matter to you? In the same way that I said in the blog that I wrote about setting rules and boundaries, the very first place to start is, why does this matter? Like, why is this so important? And we've talked about this a lot. And I think when someone is giving you a sense of judgment, asking them the question can be very helpful for forcing them to try and fill in the gaps. Like, why is this?
Brilliant.
Why is this so important?
Why is this important? Or like disarming can be like,
yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Why do you think that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I've always, I remember seeing this thing years ago and sharing it with my kids, and we still talk about it, and it's anti-bullying, but it's a similar thing. It overlaps. If someone says something really horrible to you, you go, I don't know, you're really ugly.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I've been working on looking ugly. Thanks for noticing. That's brilliant you noticed. And then they're disarmed. There is nothing.
They
so
have
you
no
can
idea
use that with judgment, maybe
like
just
that.
in a different way. That's really interesting. Why do you say that?
Yeah. Or thanks. I've been really working on having a messy house.
Yeah.
And because it'd be just so much cozier like this.
Yeah.
So
What do you think of it?
Thanks for noticing. Brilliant. So one of the tips is lead with empathy and not authority. So if you notice something and you think, oh, I could help them, but I'd like to support them, but I don't want to come across as judgmental. One of the first things you can do is start by acknowledging how hard parenting can actually be, and share where you've had perhaps a similar thing happen to you. So it becomes not a hierarchy, it's a shared experience. You're not sitting on high judging, you're actually next to them going, God, that's been hard.
Yeah.
Another thing is to ask and not assume. So instead of diving in with advice, which is what we do with our kids often, we think, oh, I know this one. I can fix this. I've done this before. You just say, do you think would it help you at all if I shared something that worked for me?
Yeah.
Or, are you looking for suggestions?
Yeah.
But if they say, oh, no, then you just, that's it. They don't want it.
Yeah.
They just don't want it. And then you share without instructing. So you can frame advice as like a personal experience. So what really helped me was when I did this.
Yeah.
And they can look at that and think, oh, well, that might resonate with them. But if it doesn't, that doesn't,
check it out.
It's, that's move on.
Yeah.
It's not important. And don't think, oh, well, I gave them the advice and they didn't take it.
Yeah, I am right.
Or you can say, I read something the other day and I thought it's interesting. Or you could share our episodes. Anyway, that's just a thought. Avoid that. You're great at this. Avoid the should, always, never. Any of those, like the shoulds, don't should all over yourself or anybody else.
No.
Validate before, we've done that, validate. Yeah. Curiosity, not criticism. We love this one. Yeah. Always be curious. Always ask. Let them come up with a solution themselves. Yeah. So you can just say, God, how do you think that happened? Where do you think why do you think you're feeling that way? Yeah. And what do you think you could do?
Yeah.
Because actually, I found that with my kids, the more I ask the questions and then I say, so what do you think would be the best thing that you could try? What could you try next? Very often they're really good at coming up with a solution because they've spent the time unpacking it for themselves without having me swoop in and fix it.
Yeah, and they need maybe just a sounding board.
Yeah, and then just knowing when to just be there.
Yeah.
Right, like you sitting on your daughter's bed. Sometimes life is just really hard.
Yeah.
And we can't fix it for them. No. And, this woman who's got this disabled child who acts up in public and she doesn't want to shame him by correcting his behaviour, but at the same time she feels incredibly judged. So, if you see that, you can just be with them rather than scuttling off somewhere else and just kind of just be a space with them.
Yeah.
I've had people in public where they're listening to their music on their phone, kids on the train. And I've learned I can just say to them, hey, do you mind wearing your headphones?
Yeah.
And often they'll just go, oh, no, because they haven't even thinking.
They haven't thought about it.
We don't have to judge. You can just kind of step in and be part of the community that says, maybe this would be nicer.
Beat you up on IFE, it's fine.
I have not had that response once. No. I really haven't. And I've done it lots and lots and lots of times. Adult men, everything. Yeah. And if you're really polite, what you're doing then is you're creating a community who say, oh, we don't really like this, but you do it in a nice way, and then they don't judge you. They don't get upset.
Because what happens if we don't verbalize stuff, and that could be in the home or out and about, is that we build up. We expect people to know what our boundaries are. We expect them to know
not to throw rubbish, not to
So maybe we're a parent that expects children to still, maybe I personally think it's quite old-fashioned, and children should be seen and not heard kind of vibe, that they're not allowed to say anything out in the supermarket. I find that often a judgment that comes like externally or from society is sometimes it's something that they have worked really hard on.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people get obsessed with about how other people look or that kind of thing.
Yes.
If they have, I don't know, if they have spent a lot of time and energy making sure they eat healthily and exercise and that, and then they hear an opinion that, you know, it doesn't matter anymore, they get really triggered by it.
Yes.
And maybe that's the same as parenting. If they've you know, put all their effort into their kid being a particular way, and maybe it's gone against their own grain, and maybe it hasn't been in balance for them, they get really enraged if they see somebody just letting their kids do whatever
sailing
they
through.
like. Yeah, it's
such a great point.
So judgment is always about the judger.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end.
Oh.
Well, if you found this useful, give it 5 stars, follow the show, send it right now to one person you know who's really who might benefit from it. Susie, you've been doing a huge amount of work in the corporate environment, haven't you? And excellent webinars, getting amazing feedback.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes. Is that sort of where you want to be going at the moment?
Yeah, if anyone wants to employ me doing that, I love it.
If you've got a workplace or, you know, your own business or something and you need some support with, it's almost like mind management and how to get a better workforce, working together better, but also how to sort of reframe what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, who we are at work is who we are everywhere. So
yeah, good point.
It's good. It's fun.
You can find me on www.teenagersuntangled.com or teenagersuntangled@gmail.com. I'm all over social media, and Susie can be reached there too.
Yeah.
What's your best way to reach you?
My website, which is www.amindful-life.co.uk.
Yeah, it's in the podcast notes as well. So
I just had another thought.
Go.
Bit scattered today. Also, that judgment isn't always bad, is it? Like judgment, if we can take it from a place of balance and groundedness, can be like super, super useful. Yeah. Like we don't want to ignore it.
It's feedback as well.
It's feedback,
No, I agree.
That's it.
That's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed that. I love this topic. I could talk about it forever. That's it for now.
Yeah, bye for now.
Have a big hug. Bye-bye.